Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Pitch Please, the podcast where people who play games pitch ideas to people who make them. Tom, how's it going?
Hi.
Right?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
How are you this week?
I'm good. I'm really good.
I wanted to throw out a quick apology for everyone who happened to watch. Just in case anyone watched the core gaming stream that we did. On the game that we made. We haven't done it yet.
I'm assuming
the game that we make is going to be
just apologising
awful.
in advance.
Okay,
good. Perfect.
If it was shit, sorry. If it was amazing, you're welcome.
It's not going to be that.
Hey, Chris.
Hello. I'm Chris, one of the Brunch Club developers, and what you get when you hit random too many times in a character creation menu. That's the best I can
look
think
like
of.
a default NPC.
Thanks.
Also, James.
Hi, I'm James, one of the devs.
What was that?
Working
Are you delayed?
I was overthinking it. I tried not to ruin it again, and I did.
We're back with another special guest for the first time in a couple of weeks. We've got Pyrion with us. Hello.
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 How are you
Hey,
doing?
could you? Who are you? Just in case people listening to this
Who
don't
the hell
know
are you?
Best known as the worst third of the podcast, the Triforce podcast.
Nah, come on.
Apparently, the 69th most popular podcast in the UK.
Yeah,
apparently.
it was in the
big
trending
one.
charts on Spotify, wasn't it?
Yeah, just above the Economist's podcast, or just below
Nice.
theirs, and above the Radio 5 Live football podcast.
The Economist podcast doesn't have classic Gaza impressions, which we
It
all
doesn't.
know and
No,
love.
that's true.
No, they're missing out.
It's true.
That's a point, actually. Triforce, you very kindly shouted us out a few weeks ago, calling us Pitch Perfect. Well, it was Lewis that said Pitch Perfect. And we did not return the favour at all.
There you go. You've done it.
Don't
Triforce.
don't return the favour.
Don't check
We're
it
going to make
out.
you 68th.
Check out the Ground Force podcast, 69th on.
So, Pyrion, what kind of games do you generally play? Mostly that you play like Dota, right? That's one.
I do play Dota an awful
lot of Dota.
So if I look at my my list of games that I've played and do my library and sort of sort by most played and everything, Dota is up there with over 8,000 hours.
8,000. Holy
8,000,
crap.
and that's in
Nice.
8 years. Just
Around
over 8 years.
1,000 a
So
year.
1,000 a year. And that's been my game for a very long time, my go-to game. And it's the one I'm most involved in the scene, and I've been there since like the beta days and everything, so it's very dear to me. But other than that, I've played a lot of Football Manager games,
Right.
mainly Football
Okay.
Manager, not the other ones. But
Yeah.
I am one of those guys that buys it every year. One of them, I think I had about 1,400 hours in it, and that was when
Holy shit.
we had our first child. I was looking after her for this would have been between 2009 and 2012, I was the stay-at-home dad. I did no streaming. I had nothing on YouTube. I was just sitting around with a baby all day watching Star Trek and Frasier reruns. And I have my laptop with Football Manager running, 2012. So it came out 2011. I did a blog about it. I played it for like 20 or 30 seasons, this one save.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I was on that all the time. And then
So
I discovered
is it
Dota.
the management game that you liked, or the football aspect of it?
No, I am a football fan, but the main thing for me that I love about games, and this goes to the other games that I play, is managing a group of people with different abilities and trying to get the best out of them. So that's why I like, and I also like the random elements and the slightly out of my control elements as well that you got to respond to. RimWorld is a big favorite of mine. I played that a lot.
Yeah.
And I also play a lot of sort of turn-based shooters like XCOM. But prior to that, there was Jagged Alliance and Jagged Alliance 2. Before that, there was Laser Squad. Before that, there was Rebel Star Raiders, if we want to go way back. So these are all games that I love,
Okay.
that turn-based tactical thing. And interestingly enough, that's the game I'm here to pitch.
You said initially that you've got two ideas, which is we've never had before.
Yes.
But I suspect there's a good chance we might not get to cover both.
Oh, no, one of them is
depending.
very simple and straightforward, and the other,
Okay.
and
Okay.
it actually builds off the other one. So one of them is like it would be like a tech demo for the second one. So they're
Right.
related
Okay.
ideas, if you like.
Okay, well, let's do both.
Okay, well, yeah. So then, in whichever order you think works best, please please give us your
pitch,
okay.
please.
pitch.
We never do that. Pitch, please.
Okay. You should. That should be your thing.
That's the thing. Pitch, please. Everyone. 1, 2, 3. Pitch,
everyone
please.
say.
Pitch, please.
Pitch, please. Period.
Oh, I love it.
So-
I hate it.
Like I was saying, I like those kind of turn-based tactical shooters, but I think that a lot of them are taking it in a very serious route. And I thought that one of the problems I've got is that eventually it becomes, especially with things like XCOM, you know exactly what skills you're going to use. The environment becomes familiar, and there's not much randomness to it. It seems quite fixed and kind of rigid and a little bit sterile.
Okay.
And they're also they're either set in some far-flung future with crazy technology, or they're just like super serious soldier types, you know. So I thought one of the things I've always wanted to do was have basically a sort of criminal underground that you're trying to build up. So you start off with just a few lads, and you have to sort of conquer areas to build up your sort of criminal empire, as it were. But you're up against all these rival gangs and stuff like that. So it's like a turf war combined with that sort of turn-based combat, sort of isometric. But your guys are not very good, and the guys you're fighting against are not very good because they're just untrained goons, right? They're not very well equipped. They're youths, exactly. They're not well equipped. They're not well trained. Sometimes they panic. But more importantly, the combat is not like, I'm here behind this car that offers me this much cover. It's more like a sort of chaotic fight, like a pub fight. So what I'd like to see is the environment playing a big effect. Like if there's someone near a bar, you can grab them and slide them down the bar sort of thing. People with petrol bombs. Anybody having a gun is automatically like, oh my God, this guy's got a gun. Most people have got bats or knuckle dusters, certainly early on. So the idea is you gradually build up your skills and your lads. And you have to go out and recruit people. So you might just get a couple of sort of scabby lads off the street that are not very good. But maybe one day you stumble into Big Ron, and Big Ron is huge, comes with his own baseball bat, and Big Ron can sort them out. So I just thought that the fighting would be fun. I imagine people being thrown through plate glass windows. And the key is that the combat, the more damage you can do, the more pressure you exert on that area, that it'll fall under your sort of control.
Right.
But there's a countdown of the police are going to turn up. And there's like the police are getting closer and closer. And the closer they get, the closer you push it. Your lads might well smash the hell out of the place and kill a bunch of rival dudes, but some of them might get nicked if they hang around too long. So the police is sort of a end of turn threat, as it were.
So instead of extraction, you've just got
you've got to get out. Later on, you get a getaway car, maybe, or a van. Your lads turn up in a van, get back to the van, and try and get away.
The white van.
Yeah, so I just thought it would be fun to have that kind of more rough and ready combat style that isn't so turn-based technical. Oh, here's my ability, I give you another action.
Yeah.
It's more like punch bloke through window. You know, I thought that would be kind of fun.
So are you imagining this taking place in London, or like at least in this country, right? Because like the idea of a gun being like quite a big thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like London gangs or something, and you'd have all these different gangs would be kind of fun.
I straight away thought Peaky Blinders. Like
I hate the show.
That's what came to my mind. But because I couldn't imagine. I don't know how like it would work in like a modern setting because of
you just have,
how strict that kind of sort of. I know you can bend imagination a little bit.
No, all the gangs are different postcodes. I was always thinking
sort of. Oh, we've lost Tom.
What?
Tom?
Hello? Have you?
Your internet went a bit jammy.
You went.
And you froze. There you go.
You're back.
I could hear you just fine. Anyway, so all of the gangs are just different postcodes. So you've got like the BS1 gang, the BS2 gang, and then they're against BS13.
If it was set in the States, the thing is there you could have like the Bloods and the Crips. You've got the MS-13 or whatever they call gangs. You've got the Mafia. Guns, right? But remember, you're broke, so the gun. It's just a sort of leveling up thing. So the guns are not. You're not tangling with the guys who've got machine guns, the Russian mafia, and all that. That's later as you expand your territory. So early on, you're just exerting your control over a smaller area. Maybe later on, there are more guns and things. But they're very dangerous.
Do you start as just like 3 thugs, and you're just
you're just
going around?
a couple of lads trying to create. So you have to create a corner. where you can sell drugs. And then you need your cornermen. So some of your lads are going to need to stick on the corner so they can't come on battles with you. So if you put your strongest guys in the corner, your corner's safe, but you're not going to be taking new territories much. You've got to balance that. I thought that was quite good.
I don't know if I'm being naive, but when you say like territory, this is all drugs? Is this the idea you're selling?
I mean, it's selling crime stuff. Like it doesn't need to be specific, but but I thought there could be things like, you have to, maybe you're a fence, you have to do some fencing, maybe you're selling some drugs and all that. But you're basically in that criminal world and expanding your territory. And maybe if you get access to the dock, which is a tough fight, you got to extend out there, you get to the dock area, you control that. Now you can get more stuff in more easily. You don't have to go through a middleman who pinches stuff. So there's all layers to sort of building up your empire.
Oh, that's so cool.
You thought about it a lot, Chris.
I was going to say James go first because I've already chipped in.
I was just going to say you could rough up a bunch of shops for protection. You could start building your territory that way, and that's the easy stuff you do at the start.
Go in there with a bat, you beat up the shopkeeper. Maybe his son comes out and fancies his troubles, but Big Ron is there, punches him in the face, throws a bunch of stuff through the window, and
good thing you recruited Big Ron.
Oh, Big Ron is,
Ron's OP.
Yeah, Big Ron is strong.
That's the name of the game, isn't it?
So, in my head, it's like the overarching thing would work similar to like Heroes and Generals or PlanetSide 2, where you've got a big world map and you can see what everyone's zones in which they control, and they're shifting, and everyone's trying to. Obviously, those games are online, but this would be single player. Kind of like how Total War campaigns sort of work. So immediately in my head, it's a top-down like map of New York, and you control blocks, right? And you can progress into other people's blocks. Maybe you can then work with another rival gang to get rid of one completely, and then you take them on later. But it's temporary alliances and things like that.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good way of doing it, and like a good visualization of how much territory you're taking over is like
exactly.
Hey, look,
and you can also see the stuff that you're going to aim for. So I was thinking rather than just be a fixed map, it would be sort of every time you play it's slightly different. So maybe you start off closer to the dock system, or maybe next time you're closer to the airport. Each comes with their own pros and cons sort of thing. So it's not like a fixed city. It's more just a general idea of a modern American city.
I think territories. I think territories. It'd be cool if they're done instead of like you just attack the block and you just take over the thing. Maybe it's like done in like asset control. So like that block has nightclub, it has a storefront, it has the docks, and if you control the majority of the assets in that place, then you control the territory. So people could come and attack individual things, and you're like, okay, this place is being attacked by this gang. I control 2 out of the 3. If they take that one place, then I've lost that territory. So maybe there's like a territory bonus for taking over the entire place.
Yeah.
Should there be like an element of you don't want to, if you're attacking an area that you want to control, you don't want to fuck it up too much. You don't want to fuck up the nightclub too much, because then if you do control it, you're going to have to repair all that stuff. That's going to cost you.
So if you go and fight the nightclub and you take Molotov cocktails and wing one through the door at the start, maybe that'll win the fight for you. But now your nightclub's on fire. What are you going to do?
The staff's dead.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. Also,
however,
like what you were saying about areas having assets, you don't turn up and say this entire block is now ours. You need, like you said, you need to conquer those bits to acquire that territory, and you're going to have pushback from the other gangs. So they might attack your assets. So you've got attack missions and you've got defense missions.
Now,
nice. James,
does Batman show up? Just saying.
Nice. Superhero turns up.
Vigilante,
vigilante gangs. Yeah, you could have all kinds of random encounters. Local vigilantes have taken to the streets, and suddenly there's like 10 lads with bats and broken bottles, and your 2 cornermen have to deal with them somehow.
Nice.
So you'd be, some of the enemies you come up against would have low morale. People freaking out, just running away is a thing. So if you're up against a lot of lads, but they don't fancy it, maybe you shoot one of them and the rest of them all leg it, sort of thing. I thought
one gun does a lot of damage.
Exactly.
Just for you just have to shoot one person and that's it.
But
in the leg.
When you use a gun, you raise your heat level. Like if you're just going around beating people up, maybe you don't get as much heat. Other gangs will take notice of you. So you have like your rep or your street rep goes up as you conquer stuff. If you lose it, it goes down. Certain guys you can't hire until your rep is higher. If your heat gets too high, maybe the police are watching you. There's undercover police, so now you've got to be more careful. You get busts and things like that. People can get nicked if they get involved too much heat on them. They get arrested. So and so's in prison for the next 10 turns or whatever. There's all kinds of things you could do with it, I think.
Yeah, there's tons. Chris, what do you got?
Chris.
So I have two things. Like, first of all was when you mentioned assets, I thought was really good. So let's say, okay, we took over the docks. So that brings us a certain amount of, trade in per turn, which gives us an income per, however you want to do it. If you want to do it per turns, then everyone takes their thing.
Right.
Like in the global scale, not on the small micro fight scale.
Yeah.
I think that'd be interesting. But as well as when you take over new areas, do you like in Risk when you take a new country, you move a certain amount of guys into there, but you also you leave some behind. And it's that figuring out how many guys do I leave there, which leaves that unprotected, which is fine if you own the surrounding areas because there's a wall they have to get through first. I feel like that could be a really good part of it, especially if the characters have unique buffs and abilities. You're like micromanaging that guy's got a really good disability, which I could use, but if we get attacked here, I really need that.
Yeah.
So I think that.
So did you watch The Wire? Did you ever see The Wire?
I've seen that.
I didn't know.
Okay, so it's a great show. One of the characters on it, Stringer Bell, is he's a very tough guy, but he doesn't get his hands dirty. He's more of he goes to business school. He wants to learn how to manage stuff. So if you put him in an area, he's going to have good business management. He's going to make more money, but because he's not tough, the rep goes down, and people maybe start pilfering stuff, and you sort of don't gain as much street cred from having Stringer Bell in charge or something.
Okay.
Yeah,
you could also we don't want to have this fight. How much to put this fight off for however many turns,
right,
until we aggravate you again. Sure, I've got enough money coming in because I've got all these assets.
But I've got 2 lads coming out of prison next week, and we'll turn up again next week. Yeah.
I think the more lads you have, the bigger I think you need to have.
Yeah, there's a wage bill, of course.
So there's the more guys, the more I level you up, the more you're going to want a cut of profits and proceedings.
The more I level you up, eventually you might decide, you're not the boss of me. I can run this town myself. So suddenly,
your gang can
some
split.
area that, of course. So the gang is suddenly like, well, you've got to have a standoff with one of your henchmen. So you don't want to get them too good. You still want to be numero uno.
Okay, so what if the people that get arrested, there's a chance your crew, someone in your crew gets arrested.
They snitch.
What if they become, a police informant? And every mission you send them on, you're like, there's more police here than normal. This is... Hang on a minute. There's something's going on here.
Text the snitch.
So you have to send
just like,
people.
He comes out of prison. He's like, can you believe it, guys? They just let me go. There wasn't enough evidence.
Just let me go.
Like,
I wasn't even there for a day. Straight out.
It's crazy.
Hey,
let's go on a mission. What are we doing?
You get 5 guys come out of prison at the same time. How are you supposed to root out the snitch? Like if you suspect that that's causing you a problem.
Well, you send him on a mission.
They're bleeding you.
Maybe every mission, there is that timer for the police to turn up. Like if it gets too loud, the police turn up in 10 turns or whatever in the combat. But for some missions, it's like, the police are turning up in 5 turns, or the police are already there or something. And you're like, hang on a minute, that keeps happening when I send this guy.
They were just waiting for us, man. They were just waiting for us.
Or they're like undercover cops or something. Or there's the FBI van just sitting around the corner, and you're like, hang on a minute, what?
Maybe eventually you notice, for some reason, this guy that you keep sending, that just keeps happening. And then that's how you sort of cotton on to the idea that maybe it's this guy.
Also, you've got to figure other guys in your gang are going to come and say, I'm not sure about Tony. He's a bit... something going on. He keeps disappearing and making weird phone calls. Yeah,
Tony the Talker, they call him. We don't know why. But
depending on who you have managing those areas, like if you say you have the business savvy guy, like maybe someone like that might be more might have more of a chance of of realizing that you have a snitch in that group. That might be mechanically a little pop-up thing. Their
intelligence is high enough that they'll spot that kind of thing. Yeah. Whereas if you put all the big tough Dumbos in charge of the nightclub, maybe there's a guy in there selling you out, and they don't notice at all. And the club's losing money. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of, so you said there was attack missions and defense missions, right? Where you're trying to take over the asset or you're trying to defend your asset. I guess there could also be police raid missions where you're trying to just gather all the stuff before they turn up, so you can try and salvage that place. Like, it's going to be lost regardless because they're going to take it over.
Right. But
you're trying to salvage
get out
what you can.
So there's like escape points around the map. Your guys get to them as fast as they can. You're running. If they get busted or nicked by the police, well, so be it. But maybe a couple of guys get out with some bags of cash and
they have to like try and break the safe open to steal it, take all the guns, take all the drugs and stuff, and get away.
Try and get out. So that's like a different kind of mission.
Yeah. You could be like, the bank vault is going to take 5 turns to get open, right? And you're like, okay, so you've got to hold out for 5 turns. Then once you've got that, you can then escape, but that also takes turns to get out as well. I think stuff like
that's got to be a
good.
tough mission. A bank, robbing the bank.
That's like the late game stuff. So if you think about, have you seen Heat?
No.
The movie Heat.
The Michael Mann.
Yes. Yeah. So in that, there's a famous shootout scene in downtown LA where they rob this bank and the police turn up just as they're coming out of the bank. And they get in their getaway car and their car gets shot out. So they have to get out and just fight their way through this sort of police blockade with all these lads with shotguns and pistols. And they get out and like one of them gets killed. One of them gets shot and one guy gets away carrying this other guy in a bag of money. And it's sort of like, I like the idea of the later game missions have super high risk. Yeah, but the reward is super big. So you've got absolutely the good guns, but the police are absolutely going to be there in full force, sort of thing. So those missions are like the end game, super hard missions. And can you rob the?
Sorry, you have to put your good guys in, and it's that risk reward.
Of course,
I could lose like my best unit, but we can get out, and then we could bring some more people in. I feel like there should be crazy, like not legendaries, but like characters or like random events you get approached by this and you're like, oh, if you buy me off, I'll join you, and then you get a little bit of information. It might uncover a block on your map that you now know is controlled by the triads or something. So like
you need hero characters for sure.
There's like secret assets in each territory as well. Like you don't know about this, I don't know, laundromat in this certain place. Turns out they're actually obviously laundering money in the back of it. But it's an asset you didn't know about before. So you're able to like cover up your own assets to stop police getting to it or other gangs getting to it.
Right.
Things like that as well.
I really like the idea early game that you would have no idea what the territories were. So if it was some sort of fog of war, but you could see the map, it's like you're clueless. You have absolutely no idea. And you start like roughing up a shop. And they go, well, we're protected by the so-and-so.
To someone else.
And immediately
so
you've got to be careful about who you sort of start roughing up early game.
Oh, that could be amazing. Yeah, because like imagine like if you keep going on in that, the fog of war, however it would present itself.
But, you do a grayed out map, is what I imagine. Color coded based on the
just vague things like this is downtown, this is the airport, like that. But all the others, the details of each block are not as well known. So you'd have to scout them out. And like as you progress, as you get better and you start to get more territory and expand a little bit, maybe that point in the game where you go a little bit kind of in deeper water than what you're used to, and the area that you have just attacked turns out to be like those are the guys with the guns, like the mafia or whatever, and that's when you first get introduced with like, oh, we've really fucked, we've targeted the wrong place here. And then it's like turf war. You just like this all out war.
We've got to lay low for a bit or something.
We'll go to the mattresses. We've got to go to the mattresses.
Chris?
I feel like another thing is like an XCOM where you can send people off on like training missions or scout missions, but like sending people in as like an undercover gang member. So if they come back, you get extra bit of information which might uncover a zone on the map. You're like, okay, that's what's there, and you can get some numbers. It's just like they got this much, in there. They got this many guns, and this is what I can steal. And you might get like when you go into that zone, maybe the fog of war is a bit wider, and you get you do get a buff into that. I just wanted to clear up, so the world view is very resource management, moving your characters about, knowing where to attack and planning and stuff. But when you go into a block, a zone, are you imagining the XCOM style hex movement? Everyone has an action point kind of system. Like, what's that in your head?
I was thinking that I'm not really a big fan of I'm in this hex, you're in that hex, and we just stand here and whack each other. I've always felt that was kind of a little bit limited. Like I wanted the combat to be a lot more fluid and kind of not goofy, but maybe sometimes you'll see a fight like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. So you can grapple dudes. So your guys are just getting on top of a guy, kicking them while they're down sort of thing. So maybe you have a lad that's been knocked over and two of your lads run over and start putting the boot in. But then another lad throws a wheelie bin at them sort of thing. So it's sort of, the combat is a bit more mixed up and there's a lot more people falling over, like just goofy stuff like that. So the combat's not smooth and clean and tactical. This is just street brawl.
So,
I was thinking
the way I imagine
it would be a lot scrappier, but there is a game. So I wasn't imagining that broad, massive, city-wide XCOM style thing where you have to run across multiple streets to get to the right area or whatever. There is fights in tight spaces.
I was about to say that. And John Wick Hex.
And John Wick Hex, where it is the entire map is like 9 tiles, if that. And there's 4
I'm
dudes
literally
around
thinking
you.
if it's a shop front, you have the bit of road in front of the shop, some pavement, the front of the shop, the inside of the shop. That's it.
But
There's
extremely compact.
Huge maps. It's very tight locations. Because that's where, I mean, if you think about a street fight, you're not fighting from 100 yards away. You're up close. Like, it's dangerous.
Yeah, because I think
they both
it needs
utilize
to be
environmental kills really well.
Yeah. I think it does kind of, other than, I suppose there's one way you could go about it where you control a character and you just play it like a top-down fighting game or whatever. However, then you would just pick Big Ron or whatever his name was, right? And you just go in there and clobber everyone. But I think it should be done in like the XCOM style where you have a character, you play him for a turn, then you do the next character turn-based style.
Yeah.
But I suppose you could literally just have like, you're standing in front of a guy, and there's 5 different options. One of them is grapple them. One of them is push them away. One is spin them around and throw them behind you, or just punch them, kick them, whatever. Maybe you kick them and there's a chance that they'll double over, right? And then you can next turn smack them on the back of the head or whatever.
I feel like from a
fights in slightly larger places.
I was going to say maybe in terms of how it would be built, it would still be on a grid, but you wouldn't necessarily need to display the grid to the player. It would just in terms of trying to chain all of those things together. I feel like we as if we're going to make this right now, is that you might want the grid just to be able to position your
visual representation of your move layout.
Could it work in terms of like in something like XCOM? The combat's quite clean, isn't it? Like if you shoot someone, you hit or you miss, and then you go to the next guy and you do that whole round, and then you wait for their reaction, and then that's it. But could it be something like, what if it was, because in John Wick Hex, you queue up a bunch of movements and then you perform like a and then it kind of plays it all through in one, so right?
It's still turn-based, but there's a queue. It's like the new XCOM with Chimera Squad. There is a queue in which it plays out. So, and at the end, you get it all in like a movie. There's camera angles, and it plays out like the film would.
So what if it worked a bit more like that, where you're just like, and as you're saying, Pyrion, like because it's all very tight spaces. Like if you punch someone, it's not just going to be a punch; they'll get hit, and then you have to wait for them to react.
-2 damage or whatever.
Yeah, it could be like what their reaction is isn't dependent on what you do. Like if you punch them, they might then grab you and then and grapple you, and then you guys like go flying onto the bar or whatever. Like could it be you select a bunch of movements for your guys? So you say, okay, I want Big Tony to get the baseball bat and swing it at this guy, and I want this guy to charge the smaller guy behind him or whatever, and then everything plays out at the same time after that. And then you just get the enemy's reactions then. So basically everyone just jumps into this big fight that's physics. I mean, it could be this physics based. Like for example, so like if you swing like the other guy, like if Big Tony swings his bat, the guy could duck, and then it will hit the person that was charging.
Right. That's the kind of emergent chaos I want to see in the fight. I want it to be a little bit unprepared, and then that's why like. It's not just about, if you think about XCOM, in a lot of the missions, if you just have rookies, if they have a grenade or whatever, that can win the round for you. You know, it's sort of, it feels a little bit methodical. Whereas I thought what would make it fun and the value of having really good guys is that they don't make goofy mistakes and fall over, drop the Molotov cocktail behind them when they go to throw it and stuff like that. So that kind of, throw Molotov at van, would be a sort of cued effect sort of thing. But maybe another guy punches him, so he drops the Molotov, and now you've got a sort of chaos happening.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
James.
I was like, how do we get that element of chaos? I was trying to think of a way that maybe you only get a certain amount of time to tell a player a specific action. Otherwise, they do their own thing. So it'd be like, I'm just going to punch this guy. It's like, well, I don't want you to punch that guy. I want you to duck. So you've got like 3 seconds there. Then Big Tony's got 5 seconds because he's a bigger guy. And you've got, right, I've got to cue that up. I've got to cue that up. I've got to cue that up. And if you don't do it in time, it just all descends into chaos
It
for
just
a
fucking
turn.
kicks off.
And then you go, all right, I've got to react to this now. Okay,
I
right.
quite like the idea that maybe you can't give all your guys orders every turn. So there is, so that rather than, because I personally would panic under any kind of timed, so you have 3 seconds, I'm like, oh my God. So I want the chaos to be fun rather than panicky. But if you could, you can order 2 of your guys. If you have a really strong leader there, maybe as a later thing, he can lead 5 guys. So 5 guys.
So it's like leadership status. I see. Okay.
So early on, you can order like 1 or 2 of your 5 guys, and the rest of them, like you said, they just go, just run in and kick a bloke. But it's like, no, lads, no.
You can also have, there's also turns or actions that take longer than just like, what is it, like 5 seconds in this combat, right? Like if someone is just pounding this guy on the ground, he's going to keep doing that for like 4 turns. But if he keeps doing it,
until someone stops him.
Maybe there's a guy that's just like the
tell him, stop pounding that guy.
You have to send someone over to stop him. You're trying not to kill anyone.
Died 3 turns ago.
But this Big Tony, he was going to kill this guy if he don't stops him.
Yeah.
So going back to some of the other stuff that you were talking about before with having rival gangs and things, if you want to take over the nightclub, could there be other ways of approaching it that's not just send in a bunch of lads with like bottles and bricks and
I was
Molotovs or
thinking
whatever?
what I was saying about the street cred thing, you could send, especially if you sent the right team to intimidate them. Most of these gangs aren't just going to want to have a straight up brawl that risks their establishment and their lives, because they're not fighting for their country. They're fighting for, the Don or whatever. So they might just be like, you turn up with the right lads and the right amount of cred, and you can bully and muscle them off, but that's going to sort of make other gangs take notice, and maybe they'll sort of beef up their street corners or stuff like that. So you can, maybe this turn, you decide to take this one using muscle, but then for a start, those lads have to go somewhere, so they're going to reinforce other places.
I like the idea that you could recruit like a band of lawyers and
get some lawyers to help you guys
lawyer up for 1 round to be like, just send them off and that's fine.
But the better the lawyers, you get your guys back quicker if they get arrested. Like
you've got to have the right sentences.
Or maybe you can take off the cops.
Phil's out for 5 turns. Okay,
Vinny will be defended by
prison.
Public defender. Oh, Vinny's going down.
Shit.
Vinny's going to you've got the sheriff on your side this round. You've paid him off, so you're all good.
He bought off the sheriff.
Yeah.
What about playing gangs against each other, like other rival gangs? Could that be a way to like weaken their strength or something? Could there be a way to do that?
So maybe that was the thing. Yeah. There's also like the asset destroying, right? Where you can go in, if you want to take it over, then you have to do it properly, right? You have to get rid of the guys and then take it over. But I guess you could just go in with grenades, Molotovs, burn the place to the ground. And then like
triads were here and we're like, we framed them.
But maybe, like this highly contested point, maybe there's a chance that they'll just say, it must have been these guys, but you did it. Or
you know what you were saying about getting undercover guys in there sort of organization. If you can plant a guy in a rival organization, you could sow those kind of rumors and seeds.
The random events that happen. So this can be a really weird example because it's completely different game. In The Sims, when you go and have a job, you get random events that come up. It's like your boss is, throwing a party. Do you go? Do you, not go and continue your work? Like those random events could pop up saying you're left alone in a room with a computer. Do you risk looking at it, or do you just leave it alone and you won't get caught at all, but you won't gain any information?
Right. I think the risk of getting caught is like 40%.
No.
It's Monopoly. It's like you won second place in a beauty contest. I think that's what it actually is.
Don Peroni asking your spy to walk in the woods. Do you go with him?
I don't think things should happen. You shouldn't be told what happened. You should, because the problem is with when you get told you failed something and you haven't done anything to fail that thing, you blame it on the game rather than blame it on yourself. If you're given the choice between those 2 things and then you fail, it's not the the input that's random. It's the output. It's you made that mistake because you chose that, and you're like, well, next time I'll play it safer rather than I'm being punished for just
that. They do that in Nowhere Profit a lot, which I was talking about. You'll have a random event pop up, and there are certain answers that are grayed out because you don't have the relevant ability or the right guy, or you don't literally is like send this guy to do the hunting and you come back with a better reward. But if you haven't found that guy yet, that option is grayed out. So it'd be something like that, so and so is causing trouble at the laundromat, and one of the options is send Big Tony to sort it out. Then you can send Big Tony, and the chance of success is high. Whereas if you send Dweeby Dave, then that's going to be a problem, and chance of success low, sort of thing.
Yeah,
so,
Is that frustrating as a player
percentage.
as well?
No, I think some of them are okay. Yeah, as long as you're given the odds, and as long as they're not too punishing. It's like it costs you a little bit.
But you say that is that when people get like a 95% shot in XCOM and miss, they're like, it's broken. Well, it's not broken. That is literally the computer just rolled a 5, right? You didn't get what you wanted.
But that's the thing, because XCOM looks so mechanical and mathematical.
Yeah,
I think people do get frustrated when it doesn't play out exactly as they planned it. And because it's a game that is, it's not a chaotic game unless you can make it that way. But it's also very easy to plan precisely your turns and your moves. And I love it. And I'm not saying it's a bad game. I love it for that. But I wanted to do something different and a bit more fun and chaotic rather than that kind of very planned out.
I think you need an adrenaline-o-meter where they just ignore your commands because they're like, I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah. So that goes back to what you were saying earlier, because I really like the idea of having a time limit. I know we sort of didn't really like it as much, but I like the idea because in a fight you don't have much time to think, and if you're panicking, you're just going to do something. So if you can only get your number of guys, it's like Civ. If you've got too big of an army, you can't get all your stuff done in one turn. But if you've got a small guys, you can get everyone done. But I feel like if everyone has a default, so you're like, okay, I'm going to bring Gary because I know he's defensive, so he's not going to just start wailing on people if I don't get around to him. He's just going to block, or I'm going to kick these guys because I just if I leave them to do what they want and I mess about with these guys, I know they're just going to run an attack, and that's all I need them to do. So I feel like the time limit thing, or having a limited number of people you can interact with, and however we decide that, maybe a priority order thing, then I feel like, because in a fight you don't have time to think. You just
it's very quick.
Have to react.
The police are coming. You want to get the job done and get out. I like that.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of like
action. It's like, sorry. If you make it so, it's going to sound like a really weird thing, but it's kind of like a real time turn based. So like, everything you're doing it as a reaction in like basically real time, but not super real time.
Well, I was thinking if you lock in an action, then it's locked in forever. Like the moment you say yes to that guy, that's what he's doing. He's going to do that. You can't back down. That could add to it where it's like, oh shit, I told this guy to do this thing, but now this other guy, he had a better, I guess I can't do that now because I told this guy to do this.
Yeah, I think that works.
Because the problem with time is like in XCOM, if I had a time limit in XCOM and I was trying to throw a grenade and the cursor was moving around like it does every time you're trying to throw a grenade, then you've got like, I've got 15 seconds left, but this game is fucking me, I can't do it. Then I just get frustrated more than...
That is the game's fault. That's not... That's, you just got to fix that as a developer. You can't really...
Gears Tactics is really frustrating for that as well. Sometimes it feels like you can... Like I can get the difference between like a quad kill and just like damaging one enemy 20% is a pixel. And I spend like a full minute just trying to navigate the mouse just ever so slightly to the left or right.
But that's the issue that I find with XCOM and games like that, is that they're a game that are very much locked to a grid, but you get free range of where you want to place a grenade. Where I feel like
it's weird.
Locking them to a grid. This has a radius of this much, like 3 squares around. Okay, I understand that. Everything within those 3 squares is going to get damaged. But when you've got like a sphere, and it doesn't. That doesn't work when you're using
translates weirdly.
It translates that half of this hex is covered. Is that the whole thing covered? I feel like Gloomhaven.
The amount of times I've had the mouse in the right place, and then I am like really delicately trying to click the mouse so my cursor doesn't move.
You shifted a millimeter, and then you
So going back to the like the fighting side, like Pyrion, you were saying, like I think, and what sounds like most unique about this game is like embracing the chaos of the battle system, the fighting system. How, like you were also saying about, later on, like a late game or mid game, like further on when you become more experienced, when you have better guys, maybe you have weapons and stuff. How are you imagining those kind of fights to play out? Is it still just kind of nuts, or are they?
You're going to have the right guys on those missions who are good at the orders that they do. They make good decisions, like if you leave them on their own, and they're good shots. They don't panic, and the guy in charge of it is going to be able to lead all of them. So he's going to be like, if you send 5 guys on this bank job, he's going to be able to command all 5 guys. So as the game goes on, you get more control. You have more professional people working for you, and the risk is higher, but your chances are also pretty good. So it's almost like the game develops, because if you think about, when I think about XCOM, the thing that for me let it down a little bit, but is also kind of cool, is that as the game goes on, your guys get to the point where they're basically superheroes. Mm-hmm. And you've got all these abilities and stuff that it almost feels impossible sometimes to lose a lot of these fights. And it starts to get methodical. Whereas I thought the point is, as my guys get better, it gives me access to these harder fights, but they're still going to be really hard. There's going to be new challenges with them, because now the proper police are going to be out like really quickly. It's going to be a very dangerous fight, and it's going to be very hard to get out, sort of thing. So I just thought those kind of the later missions give you those bigger rewards towards the goal of, I guess, becoming the kingpin of the city.
Yeah,
right.
Where you need all that rep and all that money and that crew. I was also thinking, when it comes to recruiting guys early on, you're going to have the dregs of society who want to work for you, and they're going to be looking for, if not, I mean, criminals don't get paid a salary. They expect a cut of whatever they're doing. Yeah. So if you say you're in charge of the corner, this guy's really good, but he's going to want 20% of the corner take or whatever, whereas this guy's lousy, but you basically just have to give him a meal, sort of thing. So you've got to sort of balance stuff like that. Right, yeah, he just wants room and board. We'll sell drugs for money. For food. That's this guy. For money. Well, so I thought that as the game develops, you're not hiring those kind of guys. As your rep goes up, you attract a better caliber of criminal, dare I say it, who is good at the job, can lead guys. But the early levels, not the early levels, but sort of the early stages of the game are about building up from that chaos to a more refined chaos.
The big guys would have higher loyalty as well, I guess.
Yeah, and they'd be loyal. You're paying them well. You're the big guy. There's no one else. There's rival gangs to work for, but they've sided with you for whatever reason, sort of thing. Yeah.
We need a really nice tagging system, so you can go around and graffiti the city as early stage level. It's like, okay, I'm going to design a really nice tag, and it's just like cock and balls or something, whatever you want to do.
You just design
that could be Twitch integration.
Twitch integration. A lot of penises.
You would have Twitch integration in the names of the gang members that you could potentially hire, just like in Dominus. Well, I mean, whenever I stream that, viewers love it because they are a gladiator getting beheaded by some lad. Yeah.
So I've talked to other people about this before in Twitch, because I was doing some Twitch integration stuff a while back, and apart from like the naming stuff, is having the Twitch audience as the government, having them as the main bad guy. So they get a thing that comes up, and they're like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to like crack down on this, do a search, but they decide, and you just have to live with those repercussions,
right?
Or prepare for them to happen. So it says like, in 10 turns, do you want to sweep this block? So you can then go, okay, I can let this block go, let another gang move in, they get arrested, and it's empty again, but it's going to cost me all this income for those turns. So like there needs to be a risk and reward, but I feel like that is another way of doing it, is getting Twitch to be the bad guy, because they don't always punish you. You obviously, but you can also do it where if they keep choosing bad options, you only give them good ones.
Yeah, they want to put you on the spot. I mean, there's definitely like you said, you have like an event that's coming up, or a decision that the Twitch player has to make. They vote on that, and then you have to deal with it. This wouldn't be an event that isn't normally in the game, but they are in control of it, if you like. So they sort of feel that sense of involvement in the game. But the Twitch integration stuff is like a nice to have. I don't think it makes the game better, but it would be fun.
Never design a game around that.
No.
Some people don't have audiences, so it doesn't work.
So to go back to like the overarching thing because like XCOM, and I'm sorry, James, I know we keep mentioning XCOM, and I know you haven't played it.
I need to add it to the wish list. Yeah,
you have to because we've mentioned it in the last like 6 podcasts. But like, so XCOM 2 obviously has the Avatar project where you're working against that timer to stop it from happening, right? Whereas this feels a lot more like, I guess, Mountain Blade or Crusader Kings, where you are just this gang in the middle of nowhere, and you're just trying to exist in this world.
You're trying to make it as the king in Mountain Blade, or the king of Europe in Crusader Kings. It's almost like I don't like that. In fact, there are mods out there that extend the Dark Avatar project for like 100 turns because people don't like to play. They want to have fun and play it. And I feel like if you put that huge overall, like I think mission-based time, absolutely. But I don't think you necessarily want to have that. Especially if you give them an objective. I understand game design is like, well, you know, you've got to have some peril. Otherwise, they could just take forever to get the mission done, and it's kind of boring. So we need to have the police are coming, and this is going to happen. Some of your guys might panic as the police get closer, and you start to lose them. So the longer you spend there, the higher the risk for you. I completely accept that. But having an overall game over situation, I don't really like that because you just feel like sometimes I don't have a choice. I'm in a position where the game is going to end next turn and there's nothing I can do. And I really don't like that.
That's what I was going to say. I do like that it is this, you are just small gang, and if you don't make it, you restart, whatever. And maybe you start in a different place in New York or wherever.
Or you get your ass kicked and you're back down to being just one corner again and start again with no cred.
Well, I think the random not procedural, but random so you just choose like the squares and you place them randomly. I think that works because I know we've basically made a roguelite where you have gang permadeath. Once you're out, you restart the game, but restarting the game generates a new city, so you don't know. So the problem I have with XCOM is as much as I've replayed it, I think like 3 times now, but I go in going, oh, I remember this mission. I remember this. I think that's the problem. But with like even if you have variations on the macro and the micro, like I did the hand gesture the wrong way around there, like levels, then it keeps it fresh every time. So you don't know what to expect.
But I feel like also that's what the like Pyrion's idea about like it being like the fighting being so chaotic. That's kind of what keeps it fresh as well. Is that you never know. Like you could play the exact same area twice. You could go into the shop fight or whatever, finish that, like reload, play it again. It would be totally different because of how crazy it is, like how chaotic it is, and how inexperienced your guys are.
Yeah, because like XCOM, again, wonderful game, but you know there is a course you can take. You get this research at this point, you're going to be ahead for this mission. If you do this mission in the exact same turn order, if you reload it, it's identical pretty much. So I think there isn't really an end game to this game where you just are the king of New York in your massive gang.
It's like if you control the whole city, it's very hard you win the game. But it's very tough. Obviously, you're going to have. you're going to have to do those ultra late game missions, assault the rival boss's mansion with all his bodyguards and stuff. You know that kind of thing. In Jagged Alliance 2, which I played an awful lot, you start off on the island with this group of ragtag mercenaries. And you gradually build them up. Their skills go up. You find or buy better weapons. You can hire better mercenaries, and you conquer parts of the island that give you an income. And it's a similar kind of idea. But Jagged Alliance 2 was made something like 20 years ago, and no one has made anything like it since. And that's what I don't understand. Is that's why I love these. I love these kind of turn-based fighting games, but they're always tied into a card game, or it's a fantasy world or something like that. There hasn't been a real world shooter like that I've seen for a very long time. Jagged Alliance has made a couple of other games in the meantime that have been disastrous. It's just one of those things, right? I know people still play Jagged Alliance too because there isn't anything else that's come along like it. So it's always confused me why that's not been made.
So £8 on a GOG. There you go. It's 4.7 out of 5 stars. I mean, you can't argue with those numbers.
No.
So, but before we figure out like exactly like we kind of like give a bit of like a recap, I just want to go back to what you're saying about with like the fights and the police, like the timer being like when the police show up. What are you imagining happens then? Is it like a random amount of your people get arrested, or is that a new thing that you have to then deal with? Do you just choose to fight them or run away? Or?
There are exit tiles that you have to get to. And the exits that you choose, like let's say you have a getaway car now. So you've got the van. Okay. If you can get guys to the van, remember you can't control all of them. So some of them might run to the van. Some of them might carry on fighting, and you want to get your best guys out. Get in the van,
that
Dave!
One guy's still pounding on that guy in the shoe.
Like this. So you get in the van, and if the police get to it and arrest you, all those guys get nicked. So maybe you have to make a decision. Just go, Dave, you maniac, leave him, he's gone. So Dave gets nicked, but the rest of you get out. And so at that point, once the police turn up, it becomes an escape sort of game. So at that point, you're trying to get off the map as fast as you can.
Yeah, so maybe like two things happen where one, there's a chance that anyone that's already panicking, they'll continue panicking, they just run off in random directions or whatever. Or maybe there's a chance that someone could panic. But maybe like there's as many escape points as people you have. And if everybody goes for one escape point, then, all of the police are going to go that way. So the best option is to
split
go...
up. Yeah.
You got to split up, yeah.
Maybe you've got a guy who can hotwire a car and he's trying to get a car going while the police are running towards him.
Yeah,
so I assume there's no point in trying to fight the police because that's
you could, but the heat is going to go up massively. Like your heat is how quickly the police are going to turn up.
Yeah, but they're like an infinitely respawning.
Is immediate huge heat thing. And if you kill a bunch of them, it's like, okay, they're raiding you. That's the next mission. The next mission is they are raiding your headquarters.
Oh my God. They're raiding your corner.
Yeah. You're like, So you all get nicked and that's it. Game over.
Okay. So do you reckon at this point, your original idea versus what we've thought of now, do you feel...
It's embellished.
What we've discussed... Yeah. Like how do you feel comfortable to kind of give a quick recap of where we are? Or what do you think this game is now?
So I think this game is a combination of... managing territory, a bit like you said, a bit like Total War in that you sort of expand your empire or CK2 or anything like that.
Yeah.
With the actual sort of takeovers or the defenses taking place as a sort of tactical-ish, turn-based fights with orders given and a sort of real-time emergent fights that are chaotic and sometimes a bit crazy and not what you planned happening, but hopefully fun. With the overriding goal being to conquer territory, to gain reputation, to knock out rival gangs, recruit the best guys that you can, get the best product that you can from your suppliers to sell, and become kingpin of the city.
Yeah.
Chris, have you thought of a name yet?
Chris. So I was thinking of... I always end up thinking of puns normally, but... I was thinking of this one because of the police and just having to react constantly. Heat of the moment, not the song. This is all I could think of, and I came up with it about a minute ago.
For the name of the game.
That's
a big head shake from Pyrion.
That's a no from me. That's like a no, sir.
Heat of the moment.
Not the song. I heard the word heat. I came up with gangs in heat, and then I realised that sounds wrong.
No.
Fucking each other.
What's the London postcode, like the letters? What are the letters?
E-N, S and W.
SW?
EN, SW, I don't know, is it something like that? What if it's just the postcode or something?
That spells
gangs of something. No, it's not in New York. It has to be, but surely it has to be like I feel this game feels very British to me, like in a very kind of like the idea of guns showing up and being a big deal. I feel like is something that would happen in this country, not so much.
The whole getaway thing as well. It's like, Barry, get in the car. It's
British.
It
feels very like it feels kind of London to me. I don't know if that's
also
if that's what you had in your head initially.
I kind of didn't want to make it like the UK gangsters necessarily because if you think about it, it's all very cliched at this point, I think. It's all like, who's got the shooters? And it becomes a bit daft.
It's a rolling pin.
Okay, exactly. But it would be fun. It's just that I think that when it comes to gangs in this country, we don't have that many gangs. Like if you think about a city in America, you've got more ready access to the sort of lore of the Russian mafia, the triads, the Crips and the Bloods and all this. So I feel like over here, the gangs are literally Big Dave and his mate versus Big Tony and his mate and the Yardies and stuff like that. So it's not quite the same sort of crime thing, the mafia and all the rest of it. So I think it would be more fun to set it in a fictional American city, like sort of like Baltimore somewhere where it's
own a dank nightclub rather than a Weatherspoons.
Right, exactly.
Who's going
to die over a spoon?
You're fighting in spoons and your movement slows because the floor's so sticky.
Can't fight, the floor's too sticky.
I love it. I was just going to quickly say, I mean, you mentioned about it being isometric. Do you have any other inclination of how it might look? Like, are you thinking, is it like pixel art kind of moody, or is it more like, is it 3D? Is it?
I mean, I love pixel art, and I think it's much easier to have sort of areas look destroyed. I mean, not sort of like super blocky pixel art, but I like the animations I love the idea of someone, I don't know why I keep coming back to windows, but the idea of throwing someone through a window is such a gangstery kind of criminal, get him, bang, out the window. I just think that would look good. The destruction, the debris, much easier to do in pixel art rather than having like all those polygons. I mean, in XCOM, there's hardly any destruction, and when there is, it looks garbage, and that's like a AAA game. Right. I think it's much easier to have that destruction, and even that it's not necessarily going to look the same every time, because with pixel art you can have like procedurally generated debris and things getting smashed up and stuff like that. So I think it would be a lot more easy and fun looking, and would play into the sort of goofy ethos of it rather than the sort of much more crisp and clean.
Fill in the gaps yourself as the audience. You can, as the player, you can be like, oh yeah, I can imagine that trip looking really stupid, but you don't really get much.
Okay, so Chris, how you feeling? Would you
have a
play?
Good name? I'm trying my hardest, but I would play.
Okay,
yes,
play and or make.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
I really enjoy strategy games, and I like the macro micro management side of this, and it does combine two great like genres. It's Football Manager, but the players have guns, and it's great. The drugs is probably the same, but it's guns.
Yeah, James,
I would.
Yeah, I would make this and I would play it. I'm not really a big fan of management games, but this idea that you've got those early days are what really appealed to me, that you are that ragtag gang of people and you've got to build up over time. That to me really has captured my imagination. I think we could do a lot with that.
The idea of like sloppy combat I think is fantastic, and like having like those environmental things like fighting at a shop like in small spaces, and it being like being able to throw someone through the front, like the front shop window, like kind of stuff, like slide their face along the bar or whatever.
But like you were saying about the options that you have each turn, it is dependent on your environment. So if you're next to a chair, you get the option to smash a chair over somewhere. Like that would be kind of fun. Yeah. Or maybe they've got a dog, and now you've got to deal with a. They've got like a pit bull, you've got to handle pit bull.
One of the guys' vulnerabilities is he loves dogs.
Loves dogs.
So he's not going to attack it. He's just going to get mauled by this. Like, I just can't.
Always carries a few milk duds in his back pocket to tempt the dog.
He's got pocket bacon. He just chucks it.
Tom, what are you thinking?
I think it's really cool. I think, that open sort of style, Crusader Kings-esque, Mountain Blade style, like starting with nothing, building up, maybe you fail and you're like, I'll just restart. I think restarting in Mountain Blade is something I've done more than actually playing the damn game.
It's
but
a lot
really
of fun,
cool because the opening of the game is so fun. I mean, I wasn't imagining the pixel art style. I was imagining kind of massive chalice style, low poly, kind of simplistic look to it, but it's easy to read, right? Like fights in tight spaces is very silhouette style, so it's obvious to see who the bad guys are, who you are, but it's easy to read. Like in all of the chaos, you can see, oh yeah, that guy did pick up the chair, awesome, and he did throw it across the room and smash the bartender in the face by accident. Whoops.
Right.
So it's really quick and easy. Also, like your crew and your individual goons all having their own little stats, and there's like in XCOM, there's that one soldier who always manages to get the 60% shot, and you're like, oh, that guy's old reliable. I can trust that guy. If you send Big Tony and he's like, yeah, Big Tony, he's really good at just knocking guys out one shot every time. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to keep sending this guy and keep sending him in. His loyalty increases with you just as much as yours increases with him because you trust him more.
And then if you lose him, then it's heartbreaking.
Exactly.
Big Tony gets double barreled because they were waiting for Big Tony.
Yeah. So it's just, I feel like there's a lot of scope to build relations with all of these randomly generated people that you can name yourself, or maybe they've got hilarious names already. And also just, the asset control. It just sounds like a lot of factions working against each other and a lot of options to make it a unique game every time. And that sounds super cool. Yeah,
the combat to me especially sounds just like that's what I want, because I think I totally agree with I do love XCOM and I love playing through those kinds of games, but it does feel at a point like a bit too methodical. Like I'm kind of sitting there for a long time just thinking about what I'm going to do next.
And also, if you think about it, it's like I'm going to go move this guy here. I'm going to use this ability from here, and then I'll pull this pod. His turn, then he does this, he does that, and it is very planned out. And the real element of chaos is when you miss a 95% shot. That's what lets the turn down. And that's, I think, when people get frustrated. When you plan something out in detail and then a dice roll ruins it all for you and you suddenly lose one of your favorite guys, it is frustrating.
And I think entering the game knowing this is going to be a fucking mess.
Don't get attached to Big Tony. Big Tony's going to get a bat to the knee at some point.
Well, I think also with the ability to you're basically queuing up what's going to happen in the next 5 seconds, and then it all happens. Like if it's 3 against 1, you're 3 versus 1 dude. You can say, I trust Big Tony to punch this guy, and he's going to hit every time because he always does, and then he doesn't, and you're like, well, shit, the entire turn is fucked up because of that. You can then say, well, actually, in the next 5 seconds, Big Tony's going to try a punch, but also these 2 other guys are going to charge him. One's going to grapple him. And all of those actions happen at the same time. If one of them succeeds, great.
I would love to but I would love to see what happens. If Big Tony doesn't if he misses and then
knocks out one of the other guys out.
He stumbles. He knocks out one of the other guys, and then everyone just fucking felt. They accidentally run through the window or something. The guy dodges the charge and he goes straight through the window. But I think that's gonna be that would just be fucking great.
I think
embracing that chaos. Before we end, I just want to say, was that both of your ideas? Or?
No, so the other one was a barroom brawl. So it's like that on a much smaller tech demo scale. So the demo
this is the combat.
Having a fight in a bar. And it's literally
very
some lads come
places.
in, you got some lads sitting down, and it's just the chaos of a bar fight. So it's literally just the screen is a bar, and it's just what happens
that's
in this
the prototype.
Yeah, so that's the idea to get
James
the combat work.
Can start making.
Maybe I feel like we'd need the jukebox, and you can grab the records out of the jukebox and start flinging them at people. You've got the
Shaun of the Dead. You have to flick through them and find one.
Exactly. You've got the pool cues as well. You can have a go with those. Yeah.
When they walk in, there has to be music playing, and then it has to go and stop.
Everyone turns around.
Now the fight is on.
Piano,
Okay, well, holy shit! Thank you very much for joining us, Pyrion. That's we always go back to XCOM at some point, but I feel like we've actually done something different this time.
Crusader Kings this time.
Something interesting. All of us are going to play it. 2 of us can't make it. The other 2 would. Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
From the rest of us, we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.